Hello.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rafal, and I would like to welcome everyone to my Headshot Photography podcast. Today, I have amazing guest, Hayley Jones. She's amazing headshot photographer from Australia. As I said before we started, I've been following your work for quite a bit. You creating some stunning headshots. They unique, they different, amazing face expression, and this is something what I'm always look at. Seems like you've been in this industry for many years on both sides, and we're gonna kind of jump into this as well. So, welcome to the podcast, and again, thank you for accepting my invitation. I'm honored to speak with you, and I'm sure we're gonna have some interesting chat about photography and especially headshot photography.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of your work as well.
Oh,
So yeah,
thank you.
looking forward to chatting all things headshots and yeah, my
Absolutely. So
background.
let's jump into let's start and let's talk a little bit about your background. We talk a little bit before,
Yep.
and it seems like we have extremely similar path when it
hmm
comes to getting into the headshot photography.
Yep.
So let's kind of dive into the beginning
Yeah.
of your journey with photography, and then let's kind of move to headshot photography. How this whole thing
Okay.
started for you.
Well, my background is weddings. So actually, after I finished high school, I got a job working in a casting office. So I worked in
Okay.
a casting agency for 10 years. So I was sort of in the industry working with actors, agencies, looking at a lot of headshots because with casting work there's two parts to it. There's the office side of things and then there's the studio side of things. So the office side of things is when we're dealing with the headshots and we're sending out briefs to the agencies, looking for actors that would suit the roles that we're after. And then the agencies would submit their actors. And then we'd look through the headshots and think, oh, yeah, this person looks good for this role. This person looks good
Mhm.
for this role. We'd make the casting list and then we'd have the casting day. So that's when the actors would come in for the audition. So I did that for 10 years, on and off for
Oh
10
wow, okay.
years. Yeah.
So if we can kind of get a little bit deeper into this. So as a
Yeah.
casting director or someone who is looking at the
Yeah.
headshots, what
hmm
you were looking at, what was important? Was the lighting,
Yeah.
was the face expression, like what you were focusing on and was
Yeah.
something which kind of was,
Yeah.
important for you.
So it's interesting because a casting director or a casting person, someone in the casting industry, is always trying to please the client or the production company, the director, who have a very specific character in mind. So when we're looking through the headshots, the casting people have that in mind. So just for example, just say it's like a lawyer sort of character we're looking for. We're looking for a headshot that sort of represents that corporate look, perhaps. Or if
Mhm.
we're casting like a laundry detergent commercial and we're after like a young mum or something, we're looking for a headshot that has that warmth, maybe something that's very fresh and bright and with a nice smile.
Mhm.
So I think it all depends on the brief and the characters we're looking for, but of course the lighting, something that looks very professional, nice, clean, healthy skin, nice white teeth, all nice, healthy, bright eyes, all of that comes, and color balance as well. Like no one looking green or blue, just
Yeah.
someone that just looks very, natural, and obviously a natural look as well. Nothing, yeah, I think headshots that are too blur, like airbrushed and look too obviously edited, can
Mhm.
sometimes be a little bit of a deterrent because at the end of the day, a casting director wants to see what the actor looks like. So
Mhm.
when the actor comes into the room, you're expecting them to look like that headshot.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's
So
a fine balance between looking natural but still having like a very professional headshot.
okay. So let's kind of even dive deeper, right? So do you think every person who was, let's say, submitting headshots, do they have like different type of headshots where showing different personalities
Yeah.
depends on what the client is
Mm.
looking for?
Yeah, well, I think it's important that an actor has a variety of headshots that suit
Mhm.
a variety of different briefs, because the agent will submit the headshot, your headshot that most represents that look. So just say it's like a lawyer role, they'll submit your corporate headshot. Just say it's more of a commercial smiley job, they'll submit your smiley shot. Or if it's more of a serious character, they'll submit your more moody headshot. So yeah, I think it's important to have not a huge variety, but
Mhm.
maybe even four, like 3 or 4, I think is, and then
So bas-
sometimes
yeah. So
sometimes you can go,
basically, sorry.
yeah, even further than that, and like say, they're looking for a tradie. You could, and I guess it depends on the actor as well. You have to talk with your agent and say, what roles are going to be suiting me. And your agent might say, look, you'd make a good tradie. You've got that tradie sort of look. So you'd get a headshot that might be just in the backyard, like with some greenery, with like the tradie shirt, or a female might want like have a glam look. And so might do something more, a glamorous headshot with like the red lip. So
Mhm.
I think the actor needs to talk with their agent and just say, okay, what roles do you think I'd be most suitable for? And then get headshots that reflect that. But overall, I always just say you need a corporate headshot, you need a commercial headshot, something that shows a nice smile, and then maybe something a little bit more moody and a bit more serious.
Okay. So
Yeah.
let's kind of, because it seems like you've seen a lot of headshots in your lifetime. You've
Yes.
gone through many of them. So let's kind of
Yeah.
analyze what was the good headshot in your opinion, and I'm
Okay.
sure you've seen those bad ones. So let's kind
Yeah.
of look
Yeah.
on both ends, and let's discuss, what was good headshot in your opinion, and then
Okay.
what was like the headshot which is like, oh my god, like who even
Okay.
done this.
So good headshot, just nice and clean, nice clean lighting, nice clean skin, um, a nice expression, nothing
Mhm.
too over the top, but like a nice subtle expression. Like even if it's a serious sort of look, that a serious look, but in a subtle way that's not, too forced. Um, don't play when it comes to a good headshot. Like it's makeup. I think makeup is so important. Um, like the right colors, like colors that suit the person. Just it's sort of everything just coming all together, isn't it? And then
Yes,
with a
absolutely.
bad headshot, I feel like you can always tell when someone hasn't had professional headshots, and they're kind of just gone out into the backyard, and maybe their spouse or whoever's just taken an iPhone shot, and they're like, oh, that'll do. But you can always tell. You can always tell when it's sort of like not a professional
What was
headshot.
your advice if someone comes in with bad headshots? Like, would you say, hey, you should get
I
some
would just
professional?
say, yeah, I would just say, look, if you're serious about this as a career, like you need to invest in a good set of headshots, because
Mhm.
that's the first thing that a casting director sees when the agent is submitting you. The first thing they're seeing is your headshot. And then if the casting director likes the look of that headshot, they'll click on your headshot, which will open up the actor's profile, which then has maybe the resume or the CV, maybe a show reel, stats and measurements and all that sort of thing. But the headshot's the first thing that comes
The
up.
first impression. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of mind-boggling for me because I know, like, I don't want to put everyone in the one bucket, right?
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
so many people just don't get that, and
Yeah.
they I don't know where they're
Yeah.
getting this. I don't know, this
Yeah.
mindset that the headshots, it's not important. I can do it myself, or I can just kind of submit some, I don't know, selfie, whatever. And
Yeah.
also what I think is the biggest problem here, what I see, that just people don't, I don't want to say don't trust photographers, but they don't put value in it, right? Because
Mhm.
so many occasions I've heard like, oh, headshots, it's really easy to do. Like, what's a big of a deal to shoot a headshot? It's just
Mhm.
simple, right? And I'm sure you've
Yeah.
got this experience too. Even like, we have
Mhm.
similar backgrounds. We've shot weddings for so many years, and then we've done
Mhm.
tons of photos. I remember when I started getting into headshots, I had the same mindset. Like, like I shoot weddings for 10 years. Like, what's the big of a deal to shoot headshot? And then I started getting into this, and I'm just like, shit, this whole thing
Yeah.
doesn't even look pretty good.
Yeah.
And they're awful. The
Yeah.
lighting is off, the face expression, the posing, like this whole thing was just
Yeah.
completely total
Mm,
mess.
yeah.
And I have to totally kind of like started over learning about how to shoot headshots, because the
Mm,
wedding, first of all, have nothing to do with this. Plus,
yeah.
completely different set of skills you have to learn in order to do the good headshot. So tell me
Mm,
your story. You started shooting weddings. So for how many
yeah.
years you were shooting weddings?
Well, I shot in Sydney with a wedding studio in Sydney for 3 years, and that was all like those big Lebanese and Greek weddings. So that's my
Okay.
background is those, those big 12-hour days where there's
Mhm.
fireworks and supercars and all that, drums, like craziness.
I found that
And then
Greek weddings were always the best tippers. Like the amount of tips I got from Greek weddings, like they were
yeah,
just like throwing money at you like there's no tomorrow. And it was just like everybody,
yeah,
like friends, the
yeah,
family, the groom and bride. And I remember this one Greek wedding I had, and I was leaving, and I just approached the bride and groom. And I said, like, I'm done, whatever, like, thank you
yeah.
for a wonderful day. And the guy, the groom, just pull out like pile of money and was like still in the like kind of rubber band, and just gave it all to me. And I was like, I think it was like $1,000 or something. I'm like, are you sure you want to give it this to me?
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, this is for you. Like, you deserve it. I'm like,
I haven't
okay,
been to that much.
yeah,
But yeah, then I actually moved into states. Then I moved to the Gold Coast, and
okay,
I wasn't shooting for that studio anymore. I was still editing for them. I still edit weddings here and there. And then I moved to the Gold Coast, and I had to sort of start over with my, connections, because I don't really shoot my own weddings at this point. I was always shooting for another studio, like as a contractor,
okay.
a freelancer. So I moved to the Gold Coast, and then I was still sort of finding my feet. Um, and then that's when I had an actor friend approach me about doing headshots. And I was just like, oh, a little bit first, like, oh, really? But then I started to become quite curious about it. And I always love a challenge. Like, if I've got a challenge before me, it's like I need to figure it out. Like, I'll do
Mhm.
whatever it takes just to figure it out. And that's what happened with headshots. I was like on this determined path to just learn the lighting, learn the retouching, learn like the posing. Um, and yeah, and then I was lucky that I just sort of had clients pretty much straight away. And then I guess I just learned on the job, like as I went along, like with every headshot shoot, I would learn something new. Um, and then with the studio stuff, that was a whole new ball game as well.
Mhm.
Like with my lighting and my backdrops, and that evolved as well, and my retouching evolved.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was just learning on the job and just figuring it out as I went along, really.
So
Yeah.
what was the biggest challenge? Like when you jump into headshots, like
Mm,
what was the
yeah.
biggest struggles for
Okay.
you as a
So
headshot?
when I first started, I was shooting predominantly outdoors. So
Mhm.
then you're in the elements, like, because I live 500 meters from a beach, and you get those beach winds. So the biggest challenge is being outside, and the actors could have long hair, and next minute a big gush of wind comes along, and it's like, oh no. Or like the lighting changing as well. Like I'll find these awesome alleyways or walls that would look
Mhm.
great one day, with the lighting in my reflector look great one day, but then they'll go there the next day and maybe, I don't know, the lighting's bit, like the outdoor lighting's different. I'm like, oh, something's just not the same as it was. Yeah. So that's challenging. Like outdoors is quite challenging. But now if
Mhm.
someone wants outdoors, I just say I love it when I can't, like, I don't like to shoot in the middle of the day. Like I will if I have to, but I prefer to shoot sort of afternoon or even late afternoon when the sun's um not so harsh and it's sort of just coming down. Because then I sort of know my spots, the
Mhm.
spots that work with that sort of lighting. So I just have my sort of go-to areas
Please.
now. And then
Yeah.
obviously in summer, my outdoor headshots gets pushed back, so it's quite late because the sun can set at like 6:30. So I'm
Yeah.
shooting at like 5 p.m.
Mm.
But that's just my
Yeah.
style. That's the kind of soft lighting that I like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also I think, it comes with the time, because I remember we always kind of bring something what we already know. And I remember I was like a
Yeah.
purely natural light wedding shooter, right? So I was like, well, headshots, let's shoot
Yeah.
outdoors and let's shoot in the
Mm.
locations which I'm familiar with. But that's what you said, that the wall I hit
Yeah.
was that, I couldn't shoot anytime I wanted because the lighting was changing.
Mm.
And it was like every time I came was something different I have to deal with. So that
Mm.
was the first challenge. The wind is another big one.
Yeah.
Plus, where I live, I could shoot only through a few months because in winter, like you cannot, when the temperature
Mm.
drops like -20, there's like, yeah, I can't even handle being
Yeah.
outside. What about shooting kind of forced
Oh,
flying
yeah.
to do it, right? And then I started adding like lighting, because I knew, okay, if I'm gonna have some additional lighting, then I can have a little bit more control. So it's like kind of like a process, right? You just hitting the wall and like, okay, how I can overcome this, right? So,
Yeah. Absolutely. And
what's
then
your
with
step? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
the in because then after agencies sort of started recommending me, then that's when I got my invested my indoor setup. Um, and yeah, there was quite a few challenges there. It was just getting the lighting right. And then
Mhm.
that's when I realized how important makeup was as well, especially when
Mhm.
you're using flash. Because I never really used to think much about makeup, especially with
No.
outdoor, because you can sort of get away with minimal makeup shooting outdoors, but when you're shooting indoors and you're using flash, like makeup is so important, like the right foundation, enough
Mhm.
powder. You don't want to look like this, sweaty, shiny
Yes.
mess. And that's how much of a pain that is to Photoshop, like oil.
Well, that's how we learn, right?
So yeah, and then when I started doing the indoor stuff, I was, oh my god, makeup is so important. And then I work with a makeup artist.
Mhm.
But even now, when someone books with me, I send them out like a list of tips, like makeup
Mhm.
tips, wardrobe tips, just because over the years, you learn what doesn't
Yeah.
work. Like even just little things like don't arrive with all your clothes like crumpled up in a bag, like put them on hangers, because then I'm photoshopping out like wrinkles in the clothes, which is like more time consuming. And then even things like um nail polish. Like people would rock up with like chipped and like fluoro green nail polish. And then because sometimes it's nice to do poses where maybe there's a hand in the shot, and then you're having to Photoshop like
Nice,
chipped.
nasty nails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even like sort of no-brainer things, but I have to send everyone
Yeah.
this list, and that's things like makeup tips and
Mhm.
everything. So I'm less
Yeah,
likely to run into that.
100% agree. And I think
Yeah,
education is one of the biggest thing for headshots, because like I think it's no brainer for us, because we've dealt with this on so many occasions, and it's just
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and most of the time we don't see those stuff, right? Like we pull up
yeah.
those images to
Yes, yes,
computer, and then you see this
yes.
nails which were never cleaned before, or
Yeah,
there's no, and makeup for me was also big, like,
yeah,
I think again we've learned, right?
yeah,
So I remember one
yeah.
day I have this amazing makeup artist, and like, oh my god, like those shots are just way better, right?
Mm,
And it's just like you
yeah,
get this like a this wow moment, and just like, why I never thought about it before,
yeah.
right?
And even
um
with males as well,
yeah.
like because I always do a few test shots, and I'll look at the photo, and there could be like all these sweaty patches, and then I'll be like, okay, this guy needs some translucent powder. I always have a translucent powder on hand now.
Yes.
Put some powder on him, and the difference is incredible. Like just with a little bit of translucent powder, and I never even thought
Yeah.
about that before. I'd be photoshopping out all the sweat and the shine. I'd be like, there's got to be an easier way. And I was like,
Yeah.
powder.
After
Yeah.
3 hours on one image, you just like, yeah, we better
Oh
do something
gosh.
that's gonna
And
solve
it never
this.
looks. And no matter how much retouching you do on like trying to fix that oil or the shine, it's never going to look as good as if it was fixed on the day. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's move forward and tell me about how you developed your style. Like, how does process look like? Because I'm guessing, because I went through some of your well, I went through your work, so I've seen
Mhm.
there's a progress, right? Like you started trying different things, and then you started kind of
Yeah.
like going to specific direction. And we're gonna
Yeah.
jump into your images a little bit later on, but
Okay.
how this process look like?
Oh gosh. Well, when an actor turns up, I always sort of ask, okay, what are you wanting? Like, what sort of looks are you after? So I guess with like the more, and because I do have that background in the commercial world, um, I'm very big on like the commercial looking headshots. So a
Mhm.
nice fresh smile. Um, and yeah, I guess it just with each person I've shot, I've just figured out little things like, oh, this works for this person, and then, oh, maybe I could try this technique this time. So I guess with each person, it kind of just gradually evolved, and like learning new retouching techniques as well. Like dodge and burn for me was a game changer. That's
Okay.
probably one of my favorite retouching techniques, dodge and burn. Um, and yeah, I guess I just learned over the years, and even like with reflectors, like the outdoor with the reflectors, and working with light with the reflector.
Okay.
That's very important when it comes to the outdoor stuff. Like sometimes you can find a great wall, but it just doesn't have the right light, like doesn't have the sun in the right spot. The reflectors, the sun's just not hitting the reflector the way you want it. And then you cross the street and be like, oh, it's so much better this side of the street. So there's a lot of there's been a lot of experimentation, especially with the outdoor stuff, and just finding those right spots that doesn't create like shadows or just that nice, clean,
Mhm.
soft lighting. But the indoor stuff has definitely evolved over the past couple of years. Um,
Mhm.
and again, it's just all experimental for me, and just treating it like a challenge, and each little challenge, research and see how
Mhm.
you can overcome it. And just gradually, I've just developed this toolkit with the lighting and the retouching, but it's just honestly come from just doing it, just getting in
Yes.
there and doing it. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think this is just a message for people who are going to be watching, that
Mm.
you can go through, I don't know, hundreds of different tutorials and
Yeah.
reading books and watching YouTube videos. I think
Yeah.
if you're not going to take your camera in your hands and go outside and I don't know, create a studio or
Yeah.
whatever, or shooting, there
Yeah.
will be no progress, right? That's what I've learned. And sometimes
Absolutely.
the making mistakes also, I think, is extremely important, because I know we were trying to be perfect, right? And I
Yeah.
deeply believe that none of us is doing or shooting with kind of, I don't know, bad, um like we want to
Mm.
do our best, right?
Yeah.
So we don't
Yeah.
have bad intentions. Like we try to do whatever base knowledge we have, we try to use it the best way possible. But the experience comes from making mistakes, and I can, like, I'm sure you have the same experience, like how many crappy sessions we had where we
Yeah.
look at those images and just like what I was thinking, like what the
Yeah. Oh,
heck,
yeah. Yeah.
right?
Like I remember when I first started photography in general, I just thought that the more like airbrushed and blurred the skin looked, the more professional I looked. And then
Yes.
now I think it's almost like the opposite. It's like, no, how can we make the skin look healthy and clean and glowing, but in a way where it doesn't look like too worked on or too,
Yes.
yeah. So
Like
yeah,
million filters and
that's
right.
yeah. So yeah, I look at my old photos, and it's like, oh my god, that skin is so blurred.
Yes. And I think also, like, when we push it too much and we post it on social media, where the the resolution is kind of shrinked, right?
Yeah.
It looks even
Mhm.
worse. I actually
Yeah.
talked to someone lately, makeup artist, and she was showing me some images. She did some makeup for someone, and she just like whatever
Mm.
retouched them, using some of those filters on Instagram,
Yeah.
whatever. And I look at it, I'm like, just like, oh my
No.
god, like you don't even see the makeup because it's just so
Oh,
washed out that
yeah.
it's just horrible, right? But like how you can even explain to person that you have
Mm.
to kind of, I don't know, use professional, or don't use it at all, because
Mm.
it's not helping. It's just making these images looks kind of worse, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I just think, yeah, there's definitely like a fine art to having that clean professional look without it looking too fake, and
Yes.
especially with the actor headshot. Like at the end of the day, the headshot has to represent the actor.
Hmm.
You don't want to be that person who gets hit up by a casting director saying you need new headshots. These don't look like you. You don't want to be that actor. It has
Well,
to get that.
also what is also interesting, that people don't like to kind of redo those headshots. I had actually this
Yeah.
yesterday. I saw on Facebook some of the one of the guy I shot, like, I'm not lying, like 12 years ago. And so he released a book, and he used that image which he shot like 12
Hmm.
years ago. And I said to my wife, I'm like, he should get like a, I don't know, newer headshots, right? Because it does not really represent him. And in 12
Yeah.
years, when you're, let's say, 30, 40, it changes you, right? Like, there's no way you look
Yeah.
the same. But I
Yeah.
see, I shot those headshots for some people, and they use them for decades. And then whenever I
Yeah.
approach you, well, you need a new headshot. Like, no, 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 this one looks good. Like, I look
Yeah.
young and
Yeah.
good.
They try and drag it out as long as possible. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've
So,
even had people
yeah,
to go and change hair, change their appearance, and then want me to Photoshop their new hair on their old photos. I've had that.
yeah, I had this story actually a
Yeah.
few days ago. Someone, it was kind of interesting. I shot this corporate firm, and the guy sent me an images which were like 12 years old, and he said, like, this is what I want to look like. And then he gained like whatever, right? Like, you could see he changed.
Yeah.
And he's like, he wanted to do the reshoot. He didn't like some of the stuff which was on the image, but was more related to his appearance and
Mm.
whatever. But he's like, well, this is the image I would like to kind of, this is the way I would like to look. I'm like, well, this is 12
Yeah.
years old. There's
Yeah.
I can do certain amount of Photoshop, but
Mm.
there's no way I'm going to be able to bring you that look back,
Yeah.
because you got
Mm.
older, right? And then also, I think if you shoot good headshots, doesn't matter how old are you, you still can kind of
Yeah.
get the
Yeah.
essence of personality, right?
Absolutely. Especially with castings when it comes to like older characters. Like sometimes they want like a 70-year-old grandmother,
Mhm.
right? So as the casting director, you're expecting the headshots to look like a 7-year-old, not a 70-year-old who's got like that blurred, all the wrinkles removed, right? It's like, no, we want wrinkles. We want a
Yes.
70-year-old. Otherwise we'd cast a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
So
So
it's important for the actor to just embrace the age, because there's roles for every age.
yeah. But don't you
Mm.
think, like, we're living in this era that people want to look younger, right? They
Yeah.
try to kind of hide all those
Mm.
little
Yeah.
things that make them look older. I've seen that all the time, and it's kind of like, from one hand, it's upsetting and it's sad that very young people, they try to look even younger. I'm like, you're
Yeah.
25, and you want me to, like,
Yeah.
completely retouch you or butcher your face so you look younger. That is just
Yeah.
absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
But that's the reality of today's world. And I think everything these days is retouched and photoshopped, and movies, pictures. Every People
Yeah.
have kind of completely lost the
Mm.
sense of reality, right? And
Yeah.
it's
Well, I guess with because TV commercials, most of the time they want to see real people because they're trying to relate to the people at home, right? So most of the time with the TV castings, they want to see the real people, like nothing too photoshopped and fake looking. And a lot of the time, it's those real people that get the jobs, like not those glamorous, supermodel types. It's just the everyday
Mhm.
dad type, or the young mum or the grandma. So with TV commercials, that
Yeah,
it's good that it can, they want real people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're pushing a little bit back, but still, I think everything these days, and maybe I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that even people are older, but they still, the footage and everything
Yeah.
is slightly digitally manipulated, so they even all
Yeah.
they still look kind of cool and cute, and then the skin
Yeah.
looks glowing and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I think you know like everything got kind of got the point is polished, right? It's there's nothing
Yeah.
out there
Yeah.
that it's just
Yeah.
pure the way it looks like. Because if I would show some of those shots to my clients the way they look, and especially with the
Yeah.
lighting, and we discussed this, right? That if you hit
Mm.
someone with some solid light, everything comes
Yeah.
out. The
Oh,
face
yeah.
is in discoloration,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and it's just like you're just
Yeah.
pulling your hair out sometimes, right? But
Yeah.
we're able to fix it, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
if you
Yes.
just gave them the raw images,
Yeah.
then they would be probably like, yeah, you're a bad
Yeah.
photographer,
No.
right?
No, you have to definitely with the lighting, like the under eyes. Everyone needs the under eyes, you know, brightened up, and then things softened a little. Like absolutely, like
Hmm.
the raw, like before and after the raw and the final photo is quite different. But
Hmm.
I still try and do it in a way that still looks like the end result, still
Nothing is
represents the person. But yeah, the before and afters, like yeah, massive. With the raw,
massive.
yeah, with the
Yeah,
lighting and because those lights can create shadows, and you need to, especially with the under eyes, I think that's very important.
absolutely. Okay, so let's switch the gears. And who inspires you? Like, when you started developing your headshots, did you have anyone you were looking up to, or someone who really work kind of impact you on what you do?
Gosh. See, I was always, when I first started photography, inspired by like portrait photographers. I wasn't because I didn't really set my sights on being a headshot photographer. I didn't really look at headshot photographers. So I was really into like those fancy portraits. Like I know Julia Trotty, she's one in Sydney that does really nice like outdoor portraits. She always has beautiful light. Um, and then like Irene Rudnick, she has a really good YouTube channel. I
She's
got a
from
few like
Calgary, by the way.
yeah, I got a few
Yeah.
little retouching tips from her when I first started.
Mhm.
So yeah, because I didn't really expect to be doing headshots. I didn't
Mhm.
really look at um it was when the headshots kicked off, then that's when I saw your work. I was like, oh,
Mhm.
I like this guy's style, especially with the indoor stuff because I was just getting into the indoor stuff and I'm still figuring it out. But what I
Mhm.
liked about because you have your setup shown, I was like, oh, like there's someone there actually showing their setup because it was always a bit of a mystery to me, like the lighting
Yeah.
setup. Like I was just sort of figuring out all on my own. But yeah, it's always helpful when you know a headshot photographer shows you their setup and you can kind of experiment and yeah have
But
a look and
also
get a
with the
result.
setup, I just want to explore this a little bit because like I think we
Mm,
touched this a little bit, and I'm trying to I'm trying to be very outspoken about this stuff. That
yeah.
the headshots is the process, right? The lighting is just the one element which
Yes.
kind of puts this whole thing together. But we've discussed is the wardrobe, is the makeup, is
Mm,
the environment where you're
yeah.
shooting, the
Yeah.
person, right? Like their face features and all this stuff. There's all those
Mm,
elements which we need to somehow put together. And I
yeah.
think a lot of photographers, especially like I think it's applying to any type of photography. It doesn't matter you're shooting landscape or
Mm,
weddings or whatever. This is always this like there's a process
yeah.
involved in this whole thing.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
might have the best lighting, you might have the best camera, you might have, I don't know,
Mm,
like the best,
yeah.
I don't know, face expressions, but then let's say there's no makeup, it just kind of decrease
Yeah.
the quality of the image right on the spot. And
Absolutely.
that's what I was struggling for so many years still just kind of hit me one day, like, we have to put this whole thing together
Mm,
in order to get
yes.
this shot the right way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, I don't mind sharing, my work, but I also sometimes like getting frustrated because people like, what's your
Mm,
lighting? What's your settings, right? And it's like it's not going to help you much. It's going to just confuse you even more
yeah.
because
Yeah.
just because you set your camera, and then your subject, let's say, look like whatever, they're not prepared for the shoot, you're not going to get the results. Plus, and we've talked about it a few seconds ago, is the retouching, right? That
Mm.
completely, I'm not saying changes the person, but you just removing all those flaws
It takes
from.
it up. It takes it up another level. I feel
Yes.
like if you do the right things, you have the makeup, you have the lighting, like the image is there, but then the retouching, or the good retouching, it just takes it up that extra level.
I think it takes at least few levels up, right?
5
If you
levels,
do
right.
good retouching, that's just
Absolutely. Oh yeah,
completely
it's a game
this.
changer. Good
Absolutely.
retouching is a game changer. Yeah, and that process takes time to figure out. It took me years to get to the,
And there's never ending story, just so you know.
yes, yes,
Yeah, I'm still learning, and then you're getting
yeah,
these little tips here and there, and just like, wow, I can just
mm,
again take a notch further with the retouching process, right?
absolutely, yeah,
It's a skill which takes a lot
mm,
of practice again, right?
yeah. It's very tedious. Like, yeah, I don't think everyone out there could be a retoucher. It's very tedious. It's quite time consuming,
Mm.
but I enjoy it at the end of the day. Like I have my, my iMac, and then I'll have like a Netflix show on my laptop down here, or a podcast. So, you gotta
Yeah, I think
have
we're all
something.
on the same page. 'Cause we do exactly the same. I'm listening to podcasts. There's some
Yeah,
movie going on, and just listening and retouching. But
yeah,
also, I found is the retouching is extremely, at least for me, it's like, I'm not saying it's a downtime, but it's like relaxing, because I
yeah.
think
It
now
is.
I know what to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's something that I have like, I'm not fighting with this. I'm
No,
enjoying it,
yeah,
right? Like,
definitely. I enjoy it. Yeah, I feel like it's nice, like quiet time. Yeah, it's quite relaxing, and yeah, if you know what you're doing and you haven't made any mistakes, like there's no oil or shine that's like driving
yeah,
you crazy. It's enjoyable.
it's
Yeah,
enjoyable.
yeah,
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about. I know, like, a lot of people. I personally don't. I don't want to say I don't like talking about it, but let's talk about your gear. Like, how
yeah,
this whole equipment, also like what you're shooting with,
yeah,
what's your lighting setup,
yeah,
and let's kind of dive into this.
yeah,
Even though, again, we talk a little bit that equipment is just a part of this whole equation,
yeah,
but so did your equipment change over the time till you got your setup which you like? Because you said
yeah,
you started, I think, with a kind of natural light shooter, right? And then you
yeah,
started kind of adding
yeah,
lights to it. So, like, how does
yeah.
whole thing look like on your end?
Well, uh, when I was shooting all those big Lebanese weddings, I was shooting Fuji film, but that's what the studio gave me. But when I
Mhm.
moved to Queensland, I had to get all my own equipment. So I shoot with the Canon R6, which I love. I use that for everything. And
Mhm.
then I started shooting headshots actually with an 85 mil.
Okay.
Yeah, so more my outdoor headshots was
So do
85.
I.
I quite like the 85. And then when was that? When the Canon brought out the RF 7200,
Mhm.
I got it, and that's probably my favorite lens now to shoot headshots on, especially at 200 mil. But sometimes going outdoors, I'll still take my 85. So 85 outdoors, and then 7200 indoors, or if I've got enough sort of space to because sometimes I
Mhm.
shoot on balconies where I can't move back too far.
Yeah.
So that's when I use my 85. So they're pretty much the two lenses that I use. And yeah, I
Mhm.
shoot on the Canon R6, which works for me. Um, I've always been Canon. Even when I started, I
Okay.
was on the
Yeah.
Mark IIs and the Mark IIIs. Then I went to the R6. And then with my gear, what am I using? Godox. I just use Godox.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've got the 80-300, a couple of 80-200s. So I've
Okay.
got two 8300s, two 8200s, soft boxes. I've got a few soft boxes,
Mhm.
reflectors. Yeah, and I just and I have this. I've like made my own V flat.
Mhm.
So I have because I like the Rembrandt lighting, kind of like what you like. I don't like it to be too flat on the face.
Yeah.
So I like to have the light sort of a little bit on the side. Because
Mhm.
what I really like is the contour. Like I really love the
edges. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. I feel like that's like I always try to preserve that.
It
Yeah,
gives
the contour.
dimension to the face,
Yeah,
right? I think
and
flat
yeah,
lighting just like
yeah,
flattens everything, and you just see the
yeah,
face.
yeah.
With the Rembrandt lighting, I found that it gives you a little bit more dimension to the face. Like
Mm,
it looks
yeah.
like it's just shaping someone's face a little bit, and I love those edges too. Like,
And I
yeah,
feel like
I
it
think.
gives a bit of drama as well. Like when there's just that little bit of shadow, I feel like it pulls you in a little bit more. It's like a bit of intrigue, like not so
Mhm.
flat and washed out. So yeah, I always try and preserve the contour. And I think it's because I did years ago, I did a makeup course. It was like a weekend makeup course where we learned all about the contouring.
Mhm.
And I think that sort of comes from there is like, yeah, because even when I do my own makeup, I'm always like, oh, the contour, I got to get the contour, you know. Love a contour. So yeah, the Rembrandt lighting off to the side, and that changes from various degrees. So if I want more of a moody shot, it'll be even more to the side. And more of a commercial smiley shot, it might be a little bit more front on, and even I'll use like maybe a silver reflector there, so it's just a little bit more light coming in. And then with the maybe more of the corporate or the moodier shots, I'll do the black side of the V flat, so I get even more contour.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, and
Perfect.
then even shooting outdoors as well. I like to shoot near a wall so that I'll
Mhm.
still get the contour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
Mm.
Cool. So do you primarily shoot with lighting, or you just kind of like depends on the client? You shooting still natural light a little bit, or
Well, I have different sort of packages. So my standard package, which is what most people book me for, is like 1 hour. Like I always go over time. It says 1 hour, but I go over time. I get a bit carried away. But I usually start indoor, and then if it's a nice day, we'll go outside. So it'll
Mhm.
always start indoors. Yeah. So that's because I feel like you sort of like everyone. I feel like everyone wants a good indoor studio looking shot. Like you
Mhm.
can't really go wrong. And that you tick that box. And then if there's time and the client is keen and it's not too windy
Mhm.
and crazy outside, we'll go outside and just do you know, some outdoor shots. Yeah.
So how's your process look like? So I want to talk a little bit about you working with clients, because I what I like about your work, you have like, different types of, there's some serious faces, there is some,
Mm.
really cool smiles, smirks.
Yeah.
If you could tell me how do you interact with your subjects, how you work with them, like,
Yeah.
because you mentioned, like, let's say there is 1 hour. I have actually the same approach. Like, I for
Mm.
me, time doesn't exist throughout a photo shoot. Like,
Yeah.
I'm kind of
Yeah.
like in the different zone, and
I know.
if
You
I,
look at your watch and you're like, oh my God, I just shot you for 2 hours.
yeah. And I've seen this, also, that was the biggest, like, when I was shooting weddings, I've seen so many different, say, videographers, right? So like, oh, we have 20 more minutes, and it's just like, yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
would never ever do that to my clients. And I think with the headshots, it's kind of this, well, not the same, but it's just the process where,
Mm.
you get into the mood, and then you
Yeah.
you have this, like, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 minutes where they just like
Mm.
deliver the shots what you're looking for, but you have to get there, right? So it's
Yeah.
just like, you're
Yeah.
warming up, they learning about you, you're learning about them, and then it's just like you have this, like, I would say, this golden hour or golden moment where
Yeah.
they just like got it, and they
Oh
just
yeah.
like giving
Yeah.
you what you're going after, right? So if
Yeah.
you could tell me a little bit about
Yeah. Working with
how,
the yeah.
yeah, clients, yeah.
Well, I think it starts I think my background in the casting really helps with that because I have an
Mhm.
understanding of how the industry works, have an understanding of like the kind of roles that are out there and
Mhm.
and 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 the kind of expression that's expected in the headshot almost. So
Mhm.
because I do have that background, I feel like I can relate to actors really well because I
Mhm.
almost feel like I understand, I understand the agents, I understand like the casting, sort of the whole life of an actor. I kind of understand it. So I feel like I connect really well with actors. and I ask, who's your agent? Because I sort of have an idea of different agents around here and what the agency's like.
Mm-hmm.
I just say, like, what sort of headshots are you after? What kind of roles are you wanting to get? So that's how it all really starts for me. And I guess this is after I've already sent them the info link, which also goes over like wardrobe and not have like examples, tips. So they kind of know what to expect when they arrive, or hopefully they've read the link. So yeah, but I find it's very organic. Like, I don't really try and think, okay, right, I've got to connect with this person. I've got 10 minutes to connect. Like, I feel like it just happens naturally, like from working in the industry for so long. And yeah, I think it just sort of happens. I don't really think about it too much. Yeah, and then we just pretty much work out a bit of a plan. Like, I'll have a look at their clothes that they've brought and say, okay, this would look nice with this backdrop. This would look nice with maybe a darker backdrop. This might look good with like a moody sort of doorway shot. And then maybe if we have time at the end, we can shoot this dress outside. So I have like a little bit of I work out a bit of a plan with them before we kick off. And then I feel like making a plan, I feel like that just sort of
following
takes the pressure. Yeah, and then you can just sort of relax into it. And sometimes I don't stick to the plan. I can try say I've got an orange shirt or something with a backdrop and it's not working. I'll be like, oh no, I've got to change the backdrop, or the top's got to change. But I work in a very collaborative way with the actor. So I'm one of those photographers that shows the actor the photos. I know a lot of photographers don't do that. They kind of don't show the client anything. But I'm a photographer who does show. I'll be like, okay, you happy with your hair and your makeup in this shot? And they'll be like, oh no, my hair's sort of not sitting right. Okay, well, or you need some more hairspray, or maybe you need to change your lip color. It's not quite. Maybe you need a little bit more lip, or less lip. So I work in a very collaborative way with the client. So I'll take a few shots. I'll show them. I'll be like, happy with this? You happy with this look? And they'll be like, yep. And then I feel like that makes them ease into it more, because they can see that the shots, and if they're happy with the shots, which usually are, they can sort of relax into it, knowing that they're getting good shots. Yeah, so I work in a very collaborative way with the client. I'm not, click, 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 click. Yep, that's it. You're done. You don't see any photos. I show them as we go.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same. I do exactly. I found it's really boosting their confidence, especially when they see something which like makes them look good, and they like. And then like typically I don't show them on the computer, I show them on the back of the screen. And I think because the image is small, well, I'm not saying they can't really see it, but just kind of gives them the sense that we're getting. And especially I found whenever we're shooting in, let's say, specific location, which let's say was bright, whatever, and then they're seeing this dark image with this mood and then drama, they're like, oh my god, like how the hell you've been able to pull this off, this place doesn't look like this, right, at all. So I always found that it's confidence.
So I have this spot I like to shoot in my doorway, and it looks like nothing. So I have to show them the photo, because they're like, why am I standing in a doorway? And I'm like, just trust me. And then I show them, like, oh wow, how's that happening? And I'm like, see, you just have to trust me. But yeah, I always have to show them, because they're like in this doorway. It's like my balcony with like a bit of storage, and they're just like, why am I here?
I had this story. I had this story that happened like exactly the same. I was shooting this. So he had a kind of company which was just doing some kind of like I don't know, digital production, whatever. And he needed headshots. And then they work in this like tiny place. There's like, it was a building which there's not much space. And the only place I could shoot with the kind of like the way I wanted was the hallway. And the hallway looked like crap, right? It was like shit everywhere. And it was just like really, really not pleasant to look at it. And I'm like, well, we're gonna be shooting here. And the guy, like, I'm not lying. He's like, are you kidding me? Right? Like, you're not serious. I'm like, no, I'm really serious. And he was just like, so I'm not saying upset, but like he couldn't believe this is the way we're gonna do it. And he's like, okay, I trust you. And I could see on his face, he's just like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. He's just automatically assumed
Yeah.
it's going to be so bad. And I
Yeah.
took a couple of shots and like, look at, this is what we're getting. And he's like, oh my God, like, are you
Mm,
serious? And because of like bunch of lights on the back, so give you
yeah.
this really nice bokeh.
Yeah.
And he's
I
like, how the
understand.
hell
Yeah.
did you do it? Yeah.
So I have
So
a
I think,
similar, yeah, I have a
yeah,
similar thing.
go ahead.
When I first started the outdoor headshots, I found this alleyway, and it was like
Mhm.
the dingiest alleyway. Like there was crap everywhere. There was like these big gas tanks on the side. And I'd literally take clients there because it did the most beautiful, like with a reflector, because there was like the backlight coming in. I'd bounce the light back onto them, but there'd be this beautiful bokeh in the background with this beautiful backlight. And I shot a lot of my earlier headshots in this alleyway, and just looking at it would just be like,
Okay.
and I'd be like, this is my headshot spot. So yeah, I don't shoot there anymore. But yeah, when I first started, I was always heading to this alleyway, and people would just be like, is this it? I'm like, this is it. Just trust me. And they'd always pick,
Trust
because
me.
I give them the photos, obviously, with all the photos, and they'd always pick an alleyway shot as like their main headshot. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of headshots, because you can shoot them literally anywhere, right?
Yeah.
If you know the basics of, how the light worked, or, I always were looking for, that's what I've learned too, like shooting outdoors. I was looking always for these places which they have some, I don't know, reflective surfaces, right? Like, just steel
Yeah.
beams or whatever.
Mhm.
I had this also like a place in downtown Calgary, which was like this like gold beams, and the
Mhm.
same thing, crappy,
Mm.
garbage everywhere. And then, like the images from that place was just like out of this world. And people like,
Yeah.
why are we shooting here? Like,
Yeah.
why, why you brought me here? What the hell? And then just like, it's the same
Yeah.
thing. Like you have to trust me. Just give me, I'll take a couple shots, and then I'll
Yeah.
show you, and then we'll kind of go from there. And then that will always just kind of do the trick, because as soon as you show them the images, they like
Oh
light
yeah.
up, and like, they kind of gain this trust again, and they're like, okay, just do whatever, we trust you, right? So
I always find it funny when you're shooting next to like a garbage can or something like that, but it's like the winning shot.
yeah,
It's like it's the shot of the session, and you're just like, oh, don't go telling people that was shot near a big garbage bin.
yeah, exactly. Well, you
Yeah.
don't want to take CEOs or any some big,
No,
I don't know,
no,
high people
definitely
like
not.
that, but
Yeah.
so tell me a little bit about, because it seems like you've been doing a lot of headshots with actors and actresses. So these people, they want to be at the front of the camera, right? So tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about your kind of approach to difficult clients, because we
Yeah.
have them, right? They're coming in. Some of them,
Mm,
they want to be there, but they don't. They have low self-esteem, and
yeah.
then we need to somehow kind of
Mm,
like get them on the right
yeah.
track to boost their
Yeah.
confidence and their look. Do you have any
Yeah.
kind of approach to this, like how you deal with, because I'm guessing, you also, like in the actors industry, there are people who, they want to be in this industry, but they have a
Yeah.
hard
They're a bit
time
shy.
putting
Yeah. Oh yeah.
the camera.
I get a lot of nervous, mostly people who are just starting out,
Mhm.
and you know they're super nervous, and you can just tell that they're super nervous, or they've built it up to be this big scary thing. But then they get here and it's like, it's not scary. It's just me. So a lot of the time they can arrive quite nervous, but because I shoot in a very relaxed environment, I'll have like some music
Mhm.
on. Sometimes I have a TV on in the background. Like it's a very warm,
Mhm.
non-intimidating environment. I feel like people calm down pretty quickly if they are nervous. And because I'll have a bit of a chat with them, because at the end of the day, like they just have to sit there really or stand there. And I'll literally tell them, okay, tilt your head, move your head. And they just have to
Right.
sit there and just relax, really. I'm the one doing all the, delighting
Hard
and
way.
stressing out. They're just sitting there and I'm just like, yep, just move your face a little bit that way. That's it. Chin down. So yeah, I feel like, because I think they think that they have to do all like, I don't know, the posing, but I guide them through it. So I feel like
Mhm.
people relax pretty quickly. Yeah, they might be nervous maybe but I use the 5-10 minutes sometimes. I just say, look, we're just going to do a warm up for 10
Mhm.
minutes, even though sometimes it's not a warm up, like maybe the first few minutes are when I'm getting my lighting right. But I just
Mhm.
say, look, this is all just going to be a bit of a warm up so you can just relax. So I tell people to relax while they're doing the warm-up, and then I feel like that helps them,
to get
ease into it,
Yeah. Perfect. So let's jump into your images. I'm going to pull them up. And so what I would like to do is I would like to kind of go through those shots. And if you could just tell me a little bit of story.
That was one of my first ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so you start pretty good for the first ones.
Yeah, that would have been, I reckon it would have been maybe my 4th headshot session ever, that one. That was when I was shooting outdoors. And that was my first time actually shooting with this brick wall, which I shoot at quite a lot now. But that was the first time I went, oh, this wall looks good. And that was just when the lighting was just in the right spot, right time of day. She had beautiful skin and beautiful makeup on as well, which helped a lot. Like, I think I remember messaging her afterwards and saying, oh, your makeup was just beautiful. Like, it just popped. Like, it just had that glowy, beautiful skin. But yeah, her makeup helped with this photo, I think.
She was definitely ready for the shoot.
She was. Yeah. And then she's very warm and bubbly. So she was easy. She was a breeze to shoot.
Yeah. So do you have like a lot of returning clients or just
I do. Yeah.
Because I think for this type of industry, like they need to get the new headshots, I don't know, every couple of years, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, this is one of my very first ones, and my first shot at this little brick wally spot.
Perfect. Yeah. Really, really, that's really kind of caught my attention. This picture, because it's really nice. Yeah. Okay, this one is also like, I like the mood.
Yeah.
The connection.
So this was one of the first shoots where I had my professional makeup artist that I work with now shoot. So the makeup just helped a lot with this one. Like, she looks stunning. Like, the makeup's just beautiful. And this was actually, remember how I told you before about my weird doorway with like the crap everywhere? This is actually in my doorway.
Okay.
My balcony doorway. So it's a combination of natural light and my softbox.
Okay.
So I've used both here. But yeah, I just I make the background really dark. I pull the curtains closed. I have my ISO set really low. And yeah, this is a combination of natural light and softbox.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Really, really cool shot.
Thank you. Joel is an acting teacher. He's a great acting teacher or acting coach. So this was outdoors. So this is at one of my first little pockets I discovered that just does really nice lighting for outdoor shots. It's actually a set of stairs just sort of down the street near a bunch of post boxes. And it's always like one of my go-to outdoor spots. So again, lighting was in the right spot. I've used a reflector, and Joel's a pro. I mean, he's a professional actor. He just sort of gets straight into the mood and straight into the pose. Yeah, no, that was the shot of the day, that one.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I also found when you have those like experienced people, like, you put them on the front of the camera and they nailing every shot, and you just like, it could work for you for hours. And then and that was
one of the first shots of the shoot. It was like we just smashed the best one straight up, Yeah.
I found like you getting the first shot or the last shot sometimes, right? Like you get someone at the front and they just completely unaware and they grab, like, snap it and like, oh, that looks good.
That was it.
Or they have to warm up, right? So
that's it. That was one of the warm-up shots, and he nailed it.
Yes. Well, you did good on the warm-up shots, that's for sure.
Okay, this again is a combination of natural light and a reflector and a softbox. So sometimes when maybe it's looking a little bit grim outside, I'll actually it's a smaller softbox, but I'll take a softbox out with me shooting outdoors. So I've got the softbox here, and then that's what I love about shooting against a darker wall. See, she's got that lovely contour. It just gives that natural contour on that side. So yeah, that's a combination of natural light, reflector, the wall, and a softbox. And she had beautiful makeup as well. She did her own
Yeah,
makeup, which was perfect.
perfect. Also, what I found, like, and like, I don't do this often now, but I remember when I started shooting my headshots, I always found that, shooting against the wall where people can lean on it, give them
Yeah.
a little bit more confidence. Like they have
Yes.
something to
Yes.
kind of, lean on, and then they feel
Oh,
more
absolutely.
safer, and then all this stuff, right? So I've noticed you have a lot of shots where, you have someone kind of against
Yes.
some walls and stuff. So
I have some people, especially the newer sort of people who maybe it might be their first session. They say to me, "Oh yeah, I feel more at ease standing." So,
mhm.
but the little fun fact about this photo is her body is a different image from the face. Like I took, because she had a bit of hair
Mhm.
coming down the top there, and I couldn't for the life, because here the top has stripes. I couldn't for the
Mhm.
life of me Photoshop it the way I wanted, with all the stripes in the right spot and getting rid of this piece of hair. So the top, I think her face, and I don't know, this is two images merged together.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes
You
that's
have
what I
to do the
do.
magic, right?
Yeah. Took me a while, but I got there in the end.
Absolutely. Well, I think sometimes we have this. That's also when it comes to the retouching, what I've learned over the years, that, yeah, I have those situations the same like you. Like you have two shots, and,
Yeah,
like some part is good here and some other part is good here, and you
that's
just
it.
kind of merge them two. But
Yeah.
also, like, you're learning from this, right? Like for the next
Mhm.
time, I want to make sure I'm not gonna, let's say, make the mistakes or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
But you got to
Yeah.
do what I got to do to make the image looks good, right?
Yeah.
There's no
That's why
question.
now when I shoot and I see any bit of hair that's in the wrong spot, I'm like, oh, quickly get that, because you just know it can just be a big drama later trying to, especially when there's
Absolutely.
backgrounds and
Yeah.
yeah. So
100%. And also, what I think is, when you retouch your own images, and
oh
that's
yeah,
what I always say, like,
yeah.
I'm not saying when you get to the certain levels, a different story, but
Mhm.
especially when you're starting off,
Mm.
uh, retouching your images is so important, because you learn about your own photography, right?
Mm.
Because, when you have a hair on the face, like, who
Yeah,
was paying attention to those stuff before, right? The
really.
retouching.
Or even just like a crease in the top, and all
Yeah.
you need to do is pull the top down a little bit, which can just save like so
Yeah.
much time, like fixing out like a fold or something in the top. So I'm always like, yeah, everything, like a lot of the time I'm going up to people just fixing things like, oh, pull that down.
Yeah.
And I say to them, it's because I retouch every
Yeah.
bit of hair that's out of place. So it'll just save me a lot of time if I do it
Yeah.
now.
Also, like, I know it's gonna sound really funny, but again, I'm sure you have the same. Especially, I think everybody who is shooting headshots, like, I have a client and I look at their face and I'm analyzing. Okay, this is what I'm gonna have Photoshop. This is bad. This is what needs to be fixed. And
Yeah.
like, you're just scanning their face and
Just stare at
you're
them.
just looking
Yeah.
at all the deficiencies. Like, how much time I'm gonna spend on you fixing all this stuff. But
I
it's
find I do
funny.
that a lot when I'm outdoors and I'm trying to get the reflector in the right spot. Like I'm literally just looking into their eyes, like, and I can see them sometimes they get a bit uncomfortable. Like, what is he looking at?
Yeah, I
Trust
have.
me. Just trust me. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I do that even to my friends. Like, sometimes they're going for a beer with my buddies, and they like look at their face, like, yeah, I wouldn't want to Photoshop your face. There's some stuff going on there. But it's I think part of the job, right? Like, because we
Oh,
do that on the daily basis, and it's part
yeah.
of what we have to do. Like,
Yeah.
we cannot really even stop, right? You're looking at someone
I
and you
know.
like scanning the face in up and down.
I know. I know. You're a retoucher when you look at someone's face and all of a sudden, without even thinking about it, something comes in your head where you just want to like, so I just want to smooth out the under eye. Be like, oh, wait a sec. I'm
Yeah,
not in my Photoshop at the moment.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, like, when you Photoshop like images, this is also kind of interesting, because you staring at that face
Oh, yeah.
for whatever X amount of time. Right now,
Yeah.
it's shorter. I remember back in the days, I could spend like a couple hours on the image, and
Yeah.
you can even see the veins, right,
Yeah.
on in their eyes, whatever, and you can, like, yeah, they were drinking last night, because you could see they're red
Yeah.
or whatever, right? So you can tell a lot about
Yeah.
someone, because you really diving
Yeah.
deep into their face, and then you just analyze analyzing and all this stuff. Yeah,
I
it's
feel
kind of fascinating.
I feel like after you've retouched someone's headshots, you know their face better than they know their face.
Big time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
100%.
Yeah.
We should open new business like, plastic surgery or something. This is what we can fix in your face, right? Yeah. Yeah. I always like my wife, actually, she watched the other day, there's some, I don't know, documentary about plastic surgeons, and they were like, drawing on their face what they're gonna do. And I'm just
Yeah.
looking at it, like we could do the same thing,
Yeah.
right? It's what
Oh
needs to
yeah.
be fixed. And, yeah, we
Especially
do
with
that
like
anyway.
I feel like with Liquify and Photoshop, I've only just discovered in Liquify you can
Mhm.
change the eyes, the nose, the lips. Like,
Well, you
wow,
can do crazy stuff
wow,
nowadays. You can do
crazy,
crazy stuff. Yeah,
crazy.
it's and then I think, well, I'm sure from the liquefying panel,
Mm,
you can actually just dive into every element of the face, eyes,
yeah,
nose,
yeah,
lips, hair.
yeah,
You can change the shape of the. You can even change the smile, face.
yeah.
It like, and this is just the
Crazy.
basics, right? Now the AI
Mm,
getting in, where they can like completely,
mm,
yeah, it's just absolutely bonkers,
yeah,
right? So, and
absolutely.
then I think the control what we have over, some of those stuff. But then, like how to, first of all, how to keep it a balance, right? Like,
Mm,
you don't want to overdo it.
no.
Then from the other hand, I've learned, and I don't know if you have those situations that people going too far, right? Like they
Oh
asking me about doing things which, like, I'm not a
yeah,
plastic surgeon, right? Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
technically I know how to do it and I'm able to do it,
yeah,
but I'm gonna just say flat no because I
mm,
know like we kind of
yeah.
interfering into their like
Yeah.
face,
You're not a
whatever.
plastic surgeon, really. Like, yeah, we're there to sort of enhance what they've already got, not to change their nose or
Yeah.
face structure. Because I have had people ask me that in the past. Like, oh, can you? I think one girl wanted her face smaller,
Okay.
and I just sort of said, well, it's not really. I don't
Yeah.
as an act like because you're an actor at the end of the day. Like you need to sort of you got to be up there on screen, and you can't
Mhm.
go up to editors or you know and say, oh, can you only shoot this side of my face because I don't like as an actor
Yeah.
you sort of just have to embrace as you are, right? And I feel
Yeah.
like with headshots, like we'll enhance what you've got, but we're not going
Yeah.
to go change your face structure and make
But on
yeah
the flip side, like this is another kind of dilemma what I have sometimes. Well, and I know people probably don't do it, but I would rather change their face in Photoshop instead them going to the plastic surgeon and butcher their
mm,
face. Especially the young generation.
yeah
I
yeah
was doing this photo shoot a while ago, and the girl was like, I don't know, 20, 19, 20. And also, like, she wants to be a model, whatever. And then we got into this like discussion about plastic surgery, whatever. And then she started like naming the stuff what she has done. And I'm just like, your
yeah
face is literally butchered from every possible angle, not to mention about the rest of her body, which also she did a lot of stuff.
mm,
Really wealthy family, the parents were just like throwing the money.
mhm,
But then I started thinking like, maybe that's the solution, doing this stuff in Photoshop instead letting these
mm,
people kind of destroying
yeah
um, their face, right? So yeah, interesting times we live in, and that's for
very
sure.
interesting times, and you just wonder how far the technology is going to go with Photoshop. If you can
Well,
already
now, yeah, the AI would be coming
mm,
in, and they can basically
yeah
literally create
mm,
human or human
crazy
face. They don't
yeah
exist. I think there was this post lately which they created, I don't know, 100 faces which they don't exist. AI create this stuff.
yeah wow
So yeah, it's crazy, and I think that the process is so fast
mm,
that like even for us as a retouchers, like like if you look at how much this whole thing changed over the last decade, it's just insane.
yeah
you know
yeah
Back in the days was just removing the zits and some
yeah
pimples, that was
yeah
it. And now like you can
it,
just stuff what we can do even to
yeah
skin.
mm,
uh it's just absolutely crazy,
yeah
right?
yeah
I was laughing also, that was like a while ago, because my wife, she works in the beauty industry, and then this one clinic, they offer this like skin analysis, whatever. So
Mm.
they take photo. This I maybe I'm wrong. I don't want to, but I think it's a bullshit because this have this big machine which takes the photo of your face and they
Mhm.
can analyze your skin, the discoloration, and they give
Yeah.
you this black and white photo with some of those like. And I'm like, I can do this shit in Photoshop, like just like put
Yeah.
one black and white and start shifting the
Yeah.
colors and bring
Yeah.
this all discolorations for like
Yeah.
$5. You don't have to pay $2,000 for all this stuff.
Yeah.
But she couldn't believe it, right? She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'll show you. Like, I'll
Yeah.
take photo in the good solid like flat lighting, and I can just show you
Yeah.
exactly. We can change that. And they were charging insane amount of money for this, and they have this big
Yeah.
machine and this like this
Yeah.
whole kind of experience.
Yeah.
So okay, let's move on to your photos. Let's
Okay.
go to this one. I really like
Okay.
the
This was
face
in.
expression is
Yeah. This is
is so
another great actor, Chris.
Mm.
So this was shot indoors with a black backdrop. This was the
Okay.
Rembrandt lighting. So I had the
Yes.
softbox. I had the black shadow there,
Mhm.
the V flat, and then I had the backlighting as well.
Okay.
And I think backlighting, game changer, to have
Yes.
something at the back, just to, especially with a dark background and you're working with dark hair, it's good to create that separation. So
Yes.
yeah, and yeah, Chris is a great actor. So he again just sort of got into the mood, and
So you've done this one shot. That's it.
well, this was the look we were going for his main headshot. So so he had an idea of what he wanted his main profile to look like, and this was the one, like just a nice, friendly, warm expression. Like could be like a dad, but could also be, could be a variety of things. I feel like this headshot,
Yeah, but it's what it's so fascinating about his image, and that's I think what's really kind of caught my attention, because from one hand looks like a tough guy, but the face
Mm,
expression just kind of like makes him
yeah.
really approachable and
Mm,
nice, and then like it's just like you want to talk to this guy right away. That's the way I kind of look at it.
yeah. So when I'm shooting actors, I always say like just a little bit of a smirk can just bring so much character and life to the face. It doesn't
Mhm.
always have to be, even if it's like a serious, moody headshot, you don't have to always have that like a really serious, intense expression. Just having like a little bit of a smile, I feel like can just bring more to the, like pull you in a little bit more, and it can create like a little bit of intrigue. It's like, oh, what are they smiling about?
Mhm.
Yeah, rather than always being completely serious expression, which is good to have, but then I think it's good to
Yes.
have that's a little bit like, oh, got a bit
But
of a
that's
grin.
their job, right? Like as being an actor, they have to know how to pull this off,
Mm,
right? And
yeah,
create
he
those
nailed.
different
But yeah, he
facets.
nailed the moody look with like that little bit of a
Yeah.
grin. Yeah.
Okay, so now we're gonna go on the completely opposite spectrum.
So remember I told you about that really dingy alleyway that I used to shoot
Yeah.
at with like the gas tanks and like God knows what else. This was there. And yeah, it just does that. So there's light coming from the back.
Mhm.
And yeah, I bounced it at the front. And yeah, he created, and yeah, we got these really cool street shots. So the alleyway is really good for those street shots. So he suited that really well with a hoodie. Yeah, this is again when I was shooting all outdoors. So
Okay.
and this would have been when I first was starting out.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
found like I don't know how you felt because I started shooting headshots also with natural light. That was my kind of the
Mhm.
first
Yeah.
start. And the one thing what I've noticed, and I don't know if you feel the same way, that shooting in natural light gives people a little bit more. They're not kind of terrified with all this like soft
Yeah.
boxes, and then you can have the distance, so you can really kind
Mm.
of put an environment where they don't feel intimidated by all this equipment around them.
Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
I
I think,
think, yeah,
yeah. Yeah, definitely when someone's first starting out, they've got like 3 lights coming at them and reflectors and V flats, big
yes,
lens. You can be like, oh God. But yeah.
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 I started like I remember even shooting at this is actually kind of also interesting that how much psychology is a big part of this whole thing because
Mm.
I remember I used to rent studio right for my headshot sessions sessions, especially
Yeah.
during the winter months. And I found this place where the guy was shooting cars. It was like massive place, like you could just drive like a big truck in it, and he has this like massive studio. And I was bringing people there, and they felt so intimidated
Mm.
that I was looking at their face expressions, and they looked terrified. Like it takes I got the shots, but
Yeah.
I could really sense from them that the place is just intimidating for them, because
Mm.
like it's massive space. There's like lighting in the middle. You're shooting. You have distance, and then there's all
Yeah.
this crazy stuff.
Mm.
And, and especially for headshots, I found people have to have this environment where they feel comfortable. And then
Mm.
I was like, one day I shot this session at my client's home, and they're like,
Mm.
come in. I have a big home, and you can set it up. And all those shots were just like, they feel
Yeah.
comfortable. They could, and I'm like, shit, that's
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
kind of explore more. And then I start completely just
Yeah.
um, detached from that place and start shooting at people's homes. And then sometimes, of course, it's tough because it's tight and location. Even though in Canada, and I'm sure Australia is similar, people
Mm.
have
Yeah.
fairly big places where they live, so you always can set this up.
Yeah.
But I found completely different, kind of like people were delivering me way better face
Yeah.
expressions, and way
Mm.
more comfortable shooting at their locations where there's
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. Yeah. You have some great backgrounds that you find in people's homes that I've noticed.
That's
Yeah.
another thing, right? Like this is
Yeah.
something that is also interesting that
Yeah.
I remember. This is actually a really cool story. So I did this workshop in Houston,
Mhm.
and like after the workshop, the friend of mine, he's like, I'm gonna have a couple people, and then come into my apartment, and we're gonna shoot there.
Mhm.
And so he has this studio, and like he has this nice setup, whatever. I'm like, you know what, why don't we just kind of shoot in different places in your play in your
Mm.
apartment? And he had this kitchen,
Mm.
and so I just put some kind of red light, and there's like this really cool reflective fridge. So I'm
Mhm.
like, well, I'm gonna use this to reflect some light, and then we shot it, and he couldn't believe it. Like, how the hell you got this background from
Yeah.
kitchen? And I'm like, you know what? It's like you have
Yeah.
to work with, and because the background is blurred, like you have to really look. Someone has to tell you this is kitchen, because then you kind of like start seeing things.
Yeah.
But if you don't pay attention, like it's just nice
Yeah.
texture and nice patterns and all this stuff. So
Mm. And I feel like the
absolutely.
7200 does that really well. Like it just
Yes,
creates a really nice
absolutely.
creamy, blurry background, and you can
Yeah,
yeah.
and you can blur literally anything, right?
Yeah.
As long as you have some nice pattern, and you
Mm.
can add color to it,
Yeah.
then you're like you can shoot like
Yeah.
literally anywhere. There's no place you cannot really make
No.
it interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump into. So I think we've seen this one. Oh no, this is like a
Yeah, that was the
from the
same.
yes.
Yeah.
It's just a different smile.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump to this one.
Alleyway again. Dodgy alleyway again.
Okay.
Beautiful light. We had beautiful light coming from the back, bounced it into her face. It was all natural light. And again, she had beautiful makeup. And another
Okay.
quite established actress as well. So she was very confident. This was more, we were heading into more corporate territory. So this was sort of more corporate-y look. So yeah, I just wanted that confident smile. I think it's nice to have like a confident smile with the corporate looks.
Yeah.
But yeah, she got straight into it, and she just had the beautiful makeup and very professional actress to work with.
Absolutely. She looks really confident on this shot.
Yeah,
Like that's
she was
I think
great.
what caught my attention, that like
Yeah,
she knows exactly what she's doing.
exactly. And yeah, I think because she was one of my first ones as well when I first
Okay.
started out, and she ended up choosing like 18 photos from the
Oh
session.
wow.
Yeah. And that sort of gave me confidence. I was like, okay, people are liking my photos.
It's good. Well, that's a
But
good. So
yeah,
that's always kind of boosts your confidence, right? And that's
yeah,
also helped to
yeah,
push this further, because if people like what you
yeah,
do,
mm,
then like you feel more. I don't know. Like
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
I think also it's getting addictive a little bit. I don't know how you feel about it, but the headshot session, like it's like if you do something really cool and the client is happy, and then you love these images, like, oh, I want
mm,
to do more. This is something
yes.
that
Oh yeah.
makes
There's
me feel.
definitely a thrill. I definitely get a thrill out of doing good work, and agents being happy, clients being happy. It's definitely satisfying, and it's
Absolutely.
addictive, definitely addictive.
It's way better than a corporate job,
Oh yeah,
right? For
that's
9
it.
to 5, whatever. Everyone is just throwing,
Yeah,
up at you and pushing
that's
you.
it.
This
Yeah,
just completely.
yeah, and I
Uh,
like it. I like the challenge of headshots. Like
mhm.
it keeps me on my toes, and
Yes,
always
and
more.
every
Yeah,
client is a challenge, right? If you think about it, every
yeah.
new client coming to your door,
Mm,
it's a challenge, or there's something different you're working. So it's never boring, right? I
no.
found weddings were boring because there was you getting to the same pattern over and
Yeah.
over and over again, the same kind of
Mm,
scenario. With headshots, I found
mm,
different personalities. You're dealing with people differently.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I think every shoot gives you some kind of new experience, and then you have to know them a little bit better. It's kind of
Yeah. And with
nice.
actors as well, like most of the time actors are quite out there sort of characters. So, they come with like all this energy, and it sort of lifts you up as well. So it's like this
Mhm.
really good vibe. And always, yeah. Usually I end headshot sessions like on a high. Like I'm like, yeah, feeling good, and I'm happy.
Absolutely.
I never feel drained for some reason. Even if I'm shooting, even if I get carried away and I'm shooting for like 2 hours, I never feel like depleted at the end. I feel like
Mhm.
pumped. Yeah.
Yes. You know what?
Yeah.
I have exactly the same thing. Like I
Yeah.
never, I'm tired, but I'm
Yeah.
not feeling that, like it's something that, like I regret, that I push it too
Yeah.
much, or I feel like, I don't want to
Yeah.
do this anymore. It's just this kind
Yeah.
of like energy
Yeah.
boost, gives you this kind of
Yeah.
satisfaction. You've done something and interesting, and you create some
Yeah.
images and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
There's no. I think we have the best job ever. Like, don't take me
Yeah.
wrong. I have a lot of friends who working in different industries and stuff. And to be honest, like they all bitching about their boss, and
Yeah.
someone, the not happy clients, or some struggles and this and that. And then I'm not saying we don't have challenges,
Mm.
but at the same time I deeply believe that like as you said, we're not feeling that you like you're looking at the watch. Okay, I want to be done, right? Like you're just looking for
Yeah.
this
No.
moment over. It's kind of
Ever.
opposite. We want to keep
Opposite.
going.
It's always just like, oh wow, where did the time go? I say that to
Yeah.
I say that to clients all the time. I say, can you believe we're shooting for an hour already? And they're like, what? It just goes so like when you're having fun and you're in the flow, the time just
Yes.
flies. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then
So
I feel like
speaking
you
of
get into
time,
the zone. You get into the zone, right? And then you don't want
yeah.
to get out of the zone because you're feeling it.
No.
Yeah, that
So speaking
happens.
of time, we push it over half an
Yeah.
hour
Oh
more
yeah.
than we supposed.
That's right.
So that's okay. That's totally fine. It seems like we both and we're passionate about it, right? So we could really
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about it. So my last question to you is, what would
Okay.
be one advice you would give to someone who is starting off and they want to get in this industry, they want to shoot headshots, what kind of advice you would give them? Or what was kind of something what
Yeah.
you would like to know when you started as a headshot photographer?
My advice is, and I've done this throughout my whole photography career, is I've just dived in and done it. I haven't sort of sat on my hands like, oh, I don't have the best lens, or I don't know everything about Photoshop, so I'll just wait. Like you've just got to do it.
Mhm,
Just get a friend. Just ask some friends and say, oh, would you walk around and get like you just got to do it.
mhm,
And that's how I started even with weddings. Like I put like together I was shooting my friends, and I put together an Instagram page of my shots. And then I think I hashtagged like Sydney photographer. And then that's how I got my job working at a wedding studio for 3 years. I just went out and did it, and
mhm,
doors opened. So I would just say, but you got to have a good work ethic. I think you've got to just like to work hard, and you got to be a problem solver.
mhm,
Um, don't be you got to be prepared for the odd not late night, like figuring out an issue like with Photoshop, or something just hasn't gone right, those little things where you're up
mhm.
you know way later than you want to be figuring something out. So you got to be prepared for that, but it's worth it. It's worth
Yes.
it.
Absolutely.
So you got to have the work ethic. I think don't be afraid of working hard, and just get out there and do it.
Yes,
And just
100%.
learn as
That's
you go.
the only way. People giving us or giving some advices, but the one advice I think is just go and do it. It's
Go
like
and do
this
it.
is other kind of
Yeah.
long.
Use what you've got.
Yes.
Use what you've got. I think I started out with a $200 camera from Gumtree, which is like a secondhand website, like a piece of shit. Sorry, I thought.
Okay.
But I got out there and I just used what I had and,
Mhm.
made it work somehow.
Absolutely. Perfect.
Yeah.
Hayley, that was fantastic chat.
Yeah.
I'm super happy we were able to, kind of arrange this and talk. Yeah, amazing work. Continue what you're doing. It's absolutely amazing. I'm going to be checking your Instagram constantly, so please keep updating
Keep going.
your
Yep.
amazing images. Yeah, thank you for chatting with me. That was
Thank
real
you.
pleasure, and yeah, I'm sure we can do this. I'm sure I would like to do this at some point again.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Like you have
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of your work. And, you taught me a few retouching tricks along the way, so thank you.
Perfect.
And yeah, I'm a big fan. So yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Great.
Perfect. So I'm going to link to this podcast all your contact information so people can kind of dive deeper into your work. Just check what you're doing because you're doing pretty amazing work.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.